Hey, self-storage. Tommy here. Welcome back to Gabfocus, April 17th, 2025. This one is going to be a fantastic episode. Melissa, how are things over in Chattanooga for you today?
Fantastic. Hello, everybody, all 200 of you out there. So, yeah, ready for another great show.
It's gonna be a great show. Yeah, today we've got really, like, honestly, one of my favorite people in self-storage. Glad I get to know this guy, and glad he gets to grace the Gap Focus stage and drop some knowledge on us here today. But it's gonna be a really fantastic episode. For all of those who are joining for the very first time, welcome. I know there are quite a few of y'all in the crowd today who gets to experience Gap Focus for the first time. Today's episode is all about what the best managers do and maybe the things that others aren't willing to do or can't do. So I'm excited to hear from one of the best, Mark Green. He's been in self storage since 2000. It took a little break to go do learn about hotel industry, and then came back and one of the awesome people over at the Jenkins organization based out in Houston, Texas. Mark Green, welcome to Gap Focus, sir.
Thank you very much. Honored to be here. Really appreciate you having me.
What's your favorite? I mean, you've been in this industry for 25 years, which is a long time. What's your favorite thing about this place?
You know, started in the industry and guy I was working for sat me down and said, look, you're getting out of one of the worst businesses and getting into one of the best. And he'd been doing it since the 60s. Um, it's simple, not necessarily easy, but simple. And it's a relationship business at the end of the day. It's all about the people.
It is all about
Always
the
has
people.
been.
Yes,
You can
sir.
say it as much as you want, technology, whatever. Bottom line, it's still all about the people.
It really is. Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that's a great place to really begin our conversation today. Gap Focus, of course, brought to you by our friends at StoragePug and Lighthouse Storage Solutions, East Tennessee representing here. And really always fun for Melissa and I to come and just ask questions and learn from our experts and learn from the audience. Of course, this session is set up like this. We'll go for about an hour. Melissa and I will take turns asking questions. Mark will answer all of them. We have some great questions pre-submitted as well from the audience. If y'all have live questions, make sure you click on the Q&A form. Lots of great questions from the audience. Most of these episodes, we often don't even get to all of the questions. So I encourage you to do so. This show, and of course, every episode's available online on our website, on YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Josh and Melissa post these on the official Gap Focus podcast, usually same day, and if not, by tomorrow.
Yeah.
So today's agenda, number one, how do you go about making a good best first impression? How do you convert more leads into customers? How to provide the best customer service? Of course, we're going to answer your live Q&A, and then we're going to wrap it up with question of the week. Melissa, let's kick us off.
Let's do it. Like you said, this starts with making the best first impression. So, Mark, tell us about that. Where do the first impressions happen, and how can the best manager improve each of those areas?
It used to be first impressions were when somebody drove up. And often that's still the case. Sometimes it's still the case. People are driving by, whether they need you or not, you're getting a first impression. They see your website, it's a first impression. They call you, maybe that's the first time, first impression. They see reviews, first impression. I said there's a lot of first impressions out there. One of the best examples I can give of just a first impression that is not something you think about, but has reach like I haven't had one like this that had a reach like this. And if you will give me a little leeway, I'd like to read it.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. This is in the form of a review. Came across in November of 2023, so a year and a half ago. It's a little wordy, but it's all valuable, and I really want to go through it because hopefully I can get through it without choking up a little bit because this one touches you. So, from Emmy Lanford in Austin, Texas. At first, I wasn't sure if this was the right place because I had just seen the name on a gentleman's shirt. But after reading other reviews, it seemed like it's the right couple. I don't have experience with the company. I felt like I needed to let the owner know how great the employees are. Saturday evening on Anderson Lane, I had a flat tire and had to wait for roadside assistance. I saw a car pass by me and moved back around, so I was a little scared. The gentleman approached my window and asked if I needed assistance. I told him I was waiting on roadside assistance and said, "Thank you very much." He, who now I know his name is John, told me it's not a good area to be out by myself at night. He told me he understood about strangers helping me, but told me that if I did not mind, he and his wife would wait there with me until roadside assistance arrived, just to be sure I was okay. He said he would send his wife out to speak with me just to reassure me that he was no freak. After a few minutes, I saw him go around his vehicle to the passenger side where he was helping a lady out of the car. At that time, I was not sure who she was. I was a little scared because she had a bag in her hand. She came over, introduced herself as Sandra, calmed my nerves a bit, and handed me some water and chips. After speaking with them a bit longer, I agreed to have John change my tire. It was so nice to know in an untrustworthy world, there are still some very kind and trustworthy people out there who will do something for us in return for nothing. After telling my family what had occurred, they stated I needed to return the favor. I did not know how because John would not accept any money. All I knew were their names until this morning when I remembered the shirts they were wearing said Northgate Stories. So, sorry, this happens every time. So, John and Sandra, hope you both see this and know how grateful I am, and may God bless you both. Now, that's a first impression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know of another first impression that can reach out and touch like that one does. And so that really has to open your eyes that you're always on stage. You always have an opportunity. What are you doing, when no one is watching?
Yeah.
So
Oh, I love that. Love
on a
that so
first
much.
impression, I don't have a better one than that. It was
Yeah.
completely unintentional.
Well, and we talk
It was
about,
just
we talk about managers are great. We want them to be out in the community. We want them to, put their best foot forward and be able to have relationship with everyone in the community and actually speak on behalf of our facilities and make that connection with people. And that actually can just happen by just the way they would live their life on a daily basis, even when they're not on call or sitting behind the counter. And I think that just kind of takes it all back to the humanity of it all. So I love that. Thank you for sharing. And you've also made half the participants cry too. So
Well, well
I
done.
don't I don't think we've ever had a Gabfocus that started that way.
Badge earned, Mark.
Yeah. Good job.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, you mentioned it, right, Mark? Like the back in the day, maybe the first impression was driving by, right? Or the first impression was maybe they pulled up into your gate or your driveway and talked to you for the first time. Nowadays, customers begin their research not by driving to your facility. They're either asking a friend or they're getting on Google and going through Google Business Profile. So talk to us there. Like, how can managers impact what gets displayed or shown on Google Business Profile as people are typing in storage units near me or self-storage near me or any combination of those words?
really the biggest thing you can do. Look at it. Look at it. Verify. Is it accurate? Are there
Yeah.
great pictures? If they're not great pictures, Melissa knows a guy. Is the phone number right? Can they contact you? Do they have the right hours? Is the pin location correct? Right?
Mhm.
That's the place to sit at the table. I mean, just look at it and verify everything's right from a consumer standpoint. You can't assume, oh, well, they'll know that. Assume nothing. You
Yeah.
assume nothing. You can't assume they know anything. So
Great.
really validating just the truth of what you're showing out there just at that point, and
Yeah.
then carrying it forward when you get into websites and everything.
Yeah. The Google business profile is really there to make your what used to be our curb appeal to just make it shine, just showcase it to a bigger crowd that doesn't actually have to drive past you anymore. They can just scroll past you instead, and they can get the same impression as they would if they were driving down the street and looked at your facility and were like, dang, those lights look great, or that's a cool new sign that they just installed, or, wow, that security system looks, on point. I like that. So it's just really an extension of curb appeal. It is really all that it is.
I
Yeah,
love
you've got
that.
a global curve.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Yep.
wow.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I love that advice, Mark. Get out there, see what pictures are on your profile. Is the phone number correct? Is the website correct? Are the hours
Yeah.
correct? Those are all things that, as managers, we have maybe if we don't have direct control over, we at least have direct control over whether or not we spot it.
Right.
And then we can put in a work order for whoever's technically in charge of making those updates. But I really, really love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So back to the personal side a little bit. How about making that good first impression in that in-person greeting when you're standing behind the counter? What ways of improvement would you recommend for the managers?
When somebody walks in, you have to understand that there was a certain amount of work effort that went into actually showing up. They've already done research in almost every case. They had to spend their time and spend their gas to show up.
Mm-hmm.
You should be grateful they're there. Stand up, get out from behind the counter.
Yeah.
Standing up, I mean, behind the counter, that's great and that's wonderful. But getting in front of the counter removes that barrier. If
Mm-hmm.
you stand behind it, it's almost like a barrier. Get in front of the counter, shake their hand, look them in the eye, open the door for them to coming in, thank them for showing up. There's a big difference between being nice and being friendly. Be friendly, you know, be
Yeah.
yourself. Be yourself. I mean, unless you're a jerk. Be yourself. The whole thing is getting in front of the counter again removes the barrier.
Yeah.
And then when you are then on both sides of the counter, it's no longer a barrier. Now it's a bridge. And so it helps you kind of transition that part. But initially, get in front of it, get face to face, eyeball to eyeball, and let them know that you're glad they're there. You're glad they chose you.
Yeah. I like that. And it takes such little effort to do that.
Mm, yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like with my association work, we travel a lot to various facilities and just do, just some meet and greet kind of things. And you'd be surprised at the managers that will sit there with their phone in their hand and just look at you after several seconds go by, just look at you like, what? Without saying a word, without introducing themselves, without even a smile. And it's just like, you just want to turn around. If I didn't have actual business to conduct there and I wasn't there for a purpose, and if I was an actual customer looking to pay someone to store my stuff,
Mm.
I'd just turn around and walk away because I don't want to do business with you if you can't, grant me some kind of time and effort in a conversation. So,
I want to date myself a little bit here, but as far as I'm concerned, the cell phone has put a dagger in the heart of customer service. It
yeah,
is just it can be maddening. It adds a third person to every conversation.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So, well, speaking of phones, what should the greeting look like on the phone? How can you go above and beyond and give a good first impression when you can't even see the person you're talking to?
Love that.
So they always say, you sound different with a smile. I think it's true. All
Hmm.
right. A lot of what you do in person still translates over the phone. You can still be genuine. You can still be not nice, but friendly. You can
Mhm.
still have that extra step. You can still, you know, thank you for choosing Northgate Storage. Okay, because that's what they did. When they called you, they've already made a choice.
Mhm.
Recognize that fact. They already made a choice because they customers. They decided to call you and not the guy down the street. And why did they do that? So really
Right.
acknowledging the fact that you have already, to a certain degree, earned their business, or you've
Mhm.
certainly at least earned a place. You got into the dance. You may not punch your ticket yet, but at least you got in the dance. And so you should be grateful for that
Mhm.
because how many, look, when you look at your comps, some of us have got a dozen comps within 3 miles.
Yeah.
Easy, easy. So when they pick up the phone and call you, that choice is valuable.
Mhm.
Acknowledge the fact that they chose you and thank them for it. Start there. Let's start there.
Yeah. I think in so many of these interactions, the sale is actually yours to lose because so much of the work, you're exactly right, Mark. So much of the work has already been done on the part of the customer. They found you online, they drove by, they came to the store, whatever it is, they've already done a really big action that got them there. So it is up to you to maintain that sale. And if you don't do it well, you're just they're walking out the door. So it's up to you to lose it. So
No, that's killer advice on all fronts. And favorite thing I heard though is be yourself unless you're a jerk. then, then maybe don't be yourself.
the quote of the day. I love it.
Quote of the day for real. No, what I loved you, I love that thought of, yeah, be yourself unless you're a jerk.
Well, Leanne made a great she commented in the chat. I get calls for the wrong facility all the time. I've
Ah,
converted a lot of their sales at my store just because I actually answered the phone with a smile.
boom,
Yes.
baby. Leanne,
Yes.
There
that's
you go.
it. Put that on a poster. That's awesome.
Yep.
And
You've
and
got to
Mark,
smile.
Mark was just saying like, especially, I mean, a lot of folks are in areas where you have a dozen or more people,
Hmm.
other options. And so every call is that much more valuable in
Yeah.
a low lead environment. So, Leanne, I love that. I'm sure the owners of the stores you operate love that too. So well done, Leanne. There's a reason why you were manager of the year,
Uh-huh.
TNSSA. So
Exactly.
so Mark, so talk us through, you said smile through the phone. I really love that. Do you have like a go-to I don't say script, but a go-to best practice for answering the phone? It's probably not storage. How can I help you? Right. So like walk me through like how do you teach your team on like how to properly answer the phone in addition to smiling?
So what I like to hear, I don't hear it as often as I'd like to, and that's a whole nother podcast. Um, just like I said, thank you for choosing. Thank you for choosing. Thank you for choosing. Okay, that encapsulates so
Mhm.
much of what's happened, of what just happened when the thing rang. Let's start there. Thank you for
Yeah.
choosing. Build that rapport. And then recognize that in their mind, the customer thinks this is what they need or this is what they want. Well, what they need and what they want is two very different things. They want the biggest space for the cheapest price. That may not be
Hmm.
what they need. Our goal here is to ask the right questions, to really put them in the right unit. All right. I don't need to oversell them. I don't need to undersell them. Let's get it right. Let's ask the right questions. What is the purpose? What's their thought process here? Is this something they're going to put it in today when they're gone and they won't be back for 6 months?
Hmm.
Okay, that's one deal. Is this something they're going to be in and out of it once a month to get decorations to look for stuff? So they need a little extra room. They need some wiggle room in there. They don't need a dance floor, but they need an aisle. And
Right.
so they can get in and evaluate. Some people just like to come in and bet on the boxes. It's just the way it's people stuff. And so find out what their real intentions are going forward after you get the lease. That helps you asking those questions on how they see the use after you sign the lease helps you get them in that space. You don't have to have questions after the fact where they're like, oh, I didn't have room for this or that. Ask those questions, get them in the right space.
Hmm.
So it's really thank them first, always, always, always. Thank you for choosing. Thank you for choosing. Thank you for choosing. And then you have the cursory introductions. But then let's get to why we're here. And that is so that I can help you get the best space you really need. And recognize the fact again, what you want and what you need is two different things. I would want a big old piece of peanut butter banana pie with cinnamon on top. It's not what I need. So making sure we're able to fit that right, you know, get the right spot for them.
Well, I think you've made it like the perfect transition into the very next section, which is converting the leads. And
Yes.
that first question is, how do you start that conversation and how do you actually identify the customer's need? What questions are you asking to help identify what it is exactly that they're needing? Because if you just, when they first call, like you said, so often it's, I just need your cheapest unit, and they don't know what that means. They have no idea what size that is. Or they'll say, I need your smallest unit. Again, having no concept for, I have a 5x5 cube here that's available. That's not what you really need. So, what questions are you asking? Does your team ask to get that information?
Well, I mean, I'm not a real fan of asking them specific, what are you storing?
Hmm.
Okay. It's more about, what types of items.
Mm,
Is this inside stuff? Is this outside stuff? Is these things you would
Okay.
be okay leaving in your garage for 6 months? Or is this things you would, that are inside things that you want, you need to better protect from, heat and dust and everything else.
Okay.
And down in Houston, humidity is a huge factor. And so really first evaluating, is it inside stuff? Is it outside stuff? Is it both? Maybe they need two units because they've got lawnmowers and they got this and that and the other. Then they got a bunch of grandma's antiques. Well, you're not going to put them in the same spot.
Okay. So I like
So
that, a little
really
less
kind of,
intrusive on like what are you
yes, like,
storing?
what
Okay.
are you storing? Well, it ain't none of your business what I'm storing. I just need a box with a door on it. And
Yeah.
so don't just jump right into that specific question. Let's go
Right.
ahead and determine the type of storage, and then we can determine the amount.
That's really cool.
I
And then
love
what can
that.
we do? What can we do to evaluate placement?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, some things, yeah, you can stand up on end and use the vertical space because you're not just renting a 10 by 10, you're renting a 10 by 10 by 10.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay. So if you're if you're really going to capitalize on it, how much vertical use can you use? Can you do? That's a big factor. That's a big factor. And so really kind of getting that to get to where um, we've been able to really narrow down and give them the professional advice that it's our fiduciary responsibility to give them this professional advice as to what they need, even though it
Hmm.
may be different from what they thought they wanted.
Hmm. Well, there's been lots of great comments that have
Oh my
just kind of
gosh.
echoed what you've said, but one that I like, Amy mentioned, I always start by saying, let me ask you a few questions so that we can determine the size instead of just jumping around in with, what are you storing? Because you're right, I hadn't thought about that. That could completely sound invasive. Like, I don't want to tell you what's in my storage unit, but
You're just a
um,
creepy storage manager.
yeah.
Yes.
Why do you want to know? But I like that she prefaces it with, there's a purpose for these questions that I'm getting ready to ask you. So I can help you do this better
I love
and make
that.
sure that you actually get what you need. And I love that. So this has sparked a whole little conversation here. I love it. Great information.
Great tips, Amy.
Hmm.
No, that's really cool. So Mark, so you're asking I love the, is this inside stuff or outside stuff? I mean, I think that's brilliant. And then you kind of figure out like how much stuff do you have. That's all this is good. But while you're having this conversation, how do you educate them on the product? And I've seen in the comment section by several people of like part of what makes, the sales process so well at your facility is that you actually educate people. But walk to us through it. How do you actually go about educate them that this 10 by 10 by 10 is different than the 10 by 10 by 10 down the road? What makes your product actually unique, stand out, or better when on the outside looking in, they are seemingly the same empty space?
Okay. So from a consumer standpoint, at some point in the conversation, you're going to lose me and I'm going to be like, get to the point. And the reason I called was the price.
Hmm.
And so to transition that, okay, one of the best ways I like to do it. And so, let's talk about price. While I'm looking that up, let me tell you a little bit about us. And then you go into all the different features and amenities that you have, and whether that's from a security standpoint, whether it's convenience standpoint, whether it's ease of access, whatever the case may be, every site has got, I don't care if it's a site that was built 40 years ago or a site that's a brand new mirrored office building that just opened up 6 months ago. Every site has got certain features and benefits that are worth talking about.
Yeah.
Taking the time to explain that in a way that also conveys that one of the features and benefits that this site really has that is really important and really valuable is this person sitting here talking to you on the phone right now.
Hmm.
So being able to convey that, your features and benefits in a way that is just very welcoming, very friendly, that also inherently makes you one of the best features and benefits of the property.
Hmm.
The bottom line is they're still renting from a person
Mm,
and they're still talking to a person. So don't let that part of the conversation, don't glance over that part of it. Make sure they understand. You can't just tell them, and remember, I'm one of the best, but make sure that the way you're having the conversation is you're building a relationship here. And they will also be able to see, hey, I'd like to do business with this person. They're all one of the features and
Right.
benefits.
Yeah, yeah. And William made a good point. Different unique selling points for different kinds of tenants. Every tenant has a different set of needs,
hmm
and the best managers can read that tenant and figure out really quickly, okay, what is their main point that's so important to them? And that's where I'm going to put my focus and shift my effort to. And sometimes, like you said,
Great
there's
point.
even that customer that's like, I'm in a hurry. I just need price.
Yeah.
Because if you're gonna make me wait through a 20-minute sales presentation, I gotta go. So sometimes you do just need to know when to cut to that part and move on with the sale and hope that you can close it on that way. You have to be able to read your potential tenant there though and adjust your sales technique to what they actually need.
That's why scripts are more guidelines.
Yes.
Okay, it's a path,
hmm
but sometimes you have to take a shortcut because there's a roadblock or whatever. You got to reroute.
Hmm.
The main thing is that you're coming across as genuine and
Love
not
that.
Hmm.
scripted.
Yes.
That's just it's so important. If you go through a script, honestly, it's hard to tell because you're not, you find yourself where you're simply not answering the questions that they really want answered, because you want
Hmm.
to make sure you hit all the bullet points. But you know, you don't need 8 bullets sometimes.
Yeah,
Sometimes if you shoot right, one bullet will do the trick.
that's
And
it.
so
Yeah, and you've got the
yeah,
sale.
so
Yeah,
the script really needs to be more of kind of a guideline, and then it needs to have some off ramps.
yeah. I think the art of selling is knowing when to shut up too. Like
Yep.
you've sold the product, be quiet. Like you don't have to keep saying anything else.
Don't talk yourself. No, don't talk them out of a sale.
Yeah, exactly. Because you could end up talking yourself right out of it for sure. So I saw a question in the comment and I lost it. I don't know where it went. The comments
What
are going by so
they're
fast.
so fast, which I love.
Yeah,
So reminder.
remember, yeah, if you've got a question, put it in the Q&A. But
Yeah.
I saw one that said something about when the customer calls, should you go to the effort of inviting them to the property first, or go ahead and try to close that and actually do the rental over the phone in the
Mm,
moment?
yes.
What would you weigh as more important?
What do you teach over there, Mark?
Look, you got the hook in the water and they bid on it, you set that hook and you reel them in. You
Yes.
may not get another chance. If they hang
Yep.
up, they got a very good chance they're going to call the next guy. Don't give them the opportunity. Make the deal. You need to
Yes.
have a little bit of Monty Hall in you. Again, I'm dating myself. If you don't know who Monty Hall is, maybe you know who Wayne Brady is. Okay. But you got to be able to make the deal. You
Yeah.
could put that in the thing. We can ask everybody, is it Wayne Brady or is it Monty Hall when we say, let's make a deal?
Yeah.
That's going to tell you how old your audience is.
But you're exactly right. You could have closed the sale and have them, scheduled to come in for a visit, and then maybe they end up showing up at the wrong facility or they call back the wrong facility. You could inadvertently lose the sale. So if you've got it, close it, get it done. And when the
Yes.
customer comes in, of course, they may need some adjustments. They may need to, yeah, this 10 by 10 is not quite going to be big enough. Okay, switch it to a 10 by 15, but you got the sale. And it can easily be lost between the point of the phone call and them actually getting to the store if you're not careful.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. No, I love
A
that.
reservation is not a rental.
No,
Mm,
no.
nope. Put that on a poster too. The other, so you did mention price, right? And I think at some point in time, price does matter, right? Price may not be the number one factor for every customer, but it is a factor, right? And
It is a
especially
close number two.
it's a very close number two. There was a question in the comment section. I think this is a great, and again, this would have been a great Q&A. I'm trying to scroll so I can find it. Uh, but it was related to admin fees. There it is, Miss Gracie. So Gracie Herrera's asked, like, hey, what do we do about customers who don't want to deal with the $30 admin fee? She mentions that they lose leads because of the facility has a $30 admin fee. Sometimes customers choose to move on. How do you explain an admin fee? How do you approach the conversation? And walk us through what the Jenkins org. What do y'all teach when it comes to admin fee?
You know, we're probably fortunate. We don't get a lot of pushback on admin fees. And it
Mm,
may be simply because it is so prevalent in the industry.
yeah.
And so we don't get a lot of pushback on those. But essentially, it is, what's the setup fee for? Well, that includes, we're charged by the lease. There's certain costs just with starting up and getting the process started. You know, is an admin fee kind of is it all that we say it is from a cost standpoint? Probably not. I mean, just to be
Right.
honest.
Right.
But is it valuable revenue? It absolutely is. And the customer's time is valuable, so is ours. And so it's it is I think it's needed. We have really it is rare, I mean, extremely rare that we would waive an admin fee unless there was a situation where there was something wrong with a unit somebody moved into and we had to get them into another unit. We're not going to have admin fees on transfers and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
we don't get a lot of pushback on those. So I don't know that
Hmm.
I can really answer that question in a way that would really
Yeah.
truly help this individual because we don't get a lot of
Well,
pushback on admin
that's
fees.
a good position to be in. Melissa, in
Yeah.
your time and career, like what did you teach your managers on, like, here's how to explain an admin fee if a customer ever asks?
Yes, so I actually liked what Betty said. You explained that the fee does actually have a purpose. It covers the cost of our lock and our pest control that we do between each and like, oh, okay, you're not just charging me an arbitrary fee for no reason. You're actually giving me context to why you've actually charged it. And so sometimes that can be helpful. But also maybe take a look at what your competition's doing. Maybe if your comps are all doing $20 admin fees, maybe that does make your $30 admin fee seem a little bit outrageous. So I think that's one of those fees that you do kind of want to measure and like test the waters and see what else everyone around you's doing too. You don't have to exactly copy them, but you need to know, like I said before, you got to know what field you're playing in. So make sure that you're not pricing yourself out of it, for no reason. But don't be afraid to give a reason behind what this fee is, because a lot of people, they're looking through their fees. Well, what is this? Well, I can explain that, and as long as there's an explanation and I don't feel like you've just added on a bunch of fees that don't really mean anything, then that helps. And that can actually even start a good conversation about things like pest control, because
Hmm.
lots of times that conversation goes to, wait a minute, pest control, do you have pests? No, actually we don't, because we are proactive and we treat against that. Oh, okay, another great selling point. So that can just, and then they've forgotten about the admin fee already. You've just moved the conversation right along. So I agree with Mark. The waiving an admin fee should be an exception, but not to say that it shouldn't happen. If that fee is the only thing keeping from getting a rental, and I'm really in need of rentals because my occupancy is down, I'll waive the admin fee. If I'm at 98% and you don't like the admin fee, I'm probably not going to waive it because I'm at 98%. You give me a minute and the next person's going to rent it and they're going to pay me. So it's just, how badly do you need the rental? And if that is your only thing that is the roadblock, then maybe consider waiving that one.
Love that.
That's my take.
Case by case.
Killer
Case
advice.
by
Yeah, case
case.
by case.
Yep. So, Miss Gracie, hopefully that's helpful. And I love the audience chiming in there too. So well done, y'all. So this was a pre-submitted question from an audience member. She emailed this in when we did a call for questions, and really love this one. And so, Mark, what's your advice on this? I'll read it here. So, what is the best way to handle when I don't actually have what the customer needs? At our facility, we have 1,300 units, but most of the available units are smaller, like 5 by 10, 6 by 9s, etc. I detest turning away those who need larger drive-up spaces. I do try to sell them on side-by-side units for a discount, but currently only have one such pair. My owners are expecting me to get occupancy from 92 back to 95%, but this situation is making it very tough. So I guess the heart of the question is, what do you do when you actually don't have the product? Well, I guess two parts. What do you do when you don't have the product that your customer needs? A, and then B, what do you do when the expectations of your facility are maybe lofty or higher than you think is reasonable? Mark, walk us through that.
Okay, so menu is everything.
Mm.
All right. I got to have chicken, fish, and steak. I got to be able to serve everybody.
Mhm.
So when you get down, you get down to the last few, and on a 1,300 space property, the last few is still a lot when you're 90% or 92% occupied. So you still have a lot of space there. Look, you got to get creative. You need to bundle, right? You need to bundle spaces together and make it attractive. You need to get the map out. Where can you take down walls? Where can you make conversions?
Mhm.
Right? The cost of the conversion based on length of stay and average rent per unit, the cost of the conversion is going to, you can justify that all day long if it makes the space more rentable. The problem is they build these big giant properties. They want to make the banker happy. They put a lot of little space. So now they
Yes.
built me something I can't rent. Don't build me something I can't rent. So now guess what? I got to go back and make it rentable. You can do
Yeah.
it virtually if they're side by side. It makes sense. Otherwise, you gotta either bundle them and say, hey, I can tell you what we can do. I can get you. You can put mom and dad stuff in this unit. You can put the kids stuff over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I'll
Seasonal
give you.
stuff in one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll give you a
Yep.
free lock. I'll comp your locks. We'll make this
Mhm.
simple. We'll get them. We'll get them as close as we can get them on the same floor. All that kind of stuff. But you have to get creative. Um,
Mhm.
and then again, look at the map. Well, I don't have anything next door to each other. Okay, but maybe you don't realize that you've got this one on this hallway. You got this one on the Eisenhower hallway, and you got this one on the Kennedy hallway. And guess what? They're back to back.
Yeah.
So I can tear down the wall and make me a drive-through space. So you
Yep.
have to really get creative, look at the plans, look at your maps, um, If you've got somebody there and you're telling them no, there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you got to get creative, and you'll have to adjust rates, and you'll have to make it
Yeah.
because you're not going to rent them, you know, two 10 by 15s at the 10 by 15 and 10 by 15 price. You're going to bundle it up and make it a 10 by 30 price and adjust the price for each unit, but it still
Right.
makes sense on a price per square foot.
Right.
Okay.
Shannon,
And then you got to talk to
Shannon,
the owner and say, Mr. Owner, I want to get you to 95%, but you got to put a wallet, put a crowbar in your wallet and spend some money so we can convert some of this space to make it rentable.
yes, and that's where Shannon had a comment, data is king in this situation. You have to be able to go back to your owners with some actual data of, okay, this last month, this is how many calls came in for this size unit because maybe they need to do an addition. Maybe they need to do a serious conversion, but data is going to be king here. You've got to actually be able to show some numbers of what are these callers asking for and how many have I had to turn away? How many was I able to convert, using a little bit of creativity, but how many potential tenants did we lost? So collect the data for sure so that you can turn it in.
And if you've got a number of units together and you've got one or two people that are blocking your plan, pay the movers. Tell
Mm-hmm.
you what, I'll pay for the movers. Let's get you relocated to another
Yeah.
unit and let me take
Wow.
care of my business.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a
you
great
can't
idea.
you can't let there's nothing if you're talking about making it rentable, there's almost nothing I can imagine that you should allow to get in your way to
Mm-hmm.
making a place more rentable.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I love that.
Beautiful.
Pay for the movers to come in, give them a free month for their hassle, and you've got your instant rental anyway. So yeah, love that. So, switching gears just a little bit. How do you handle customers who wonder why the REIT down the road is cheaper than you?
Um, we're all in that spot. I don't say everybody's in that spot, but a lot of us are in that spot. I've been in this spot. I got a story about that. I'll tell you in a minute. Um, First off, the REITs they'll come in and they'll crash your market,
Hmm.
Hmm.
and you can say, well, my spaces are worth more than that. I'm not going there.
Hmm.
I'm fully stabilized. Being stabilized and staying stabilized are two very different things. And
Yeah.
if you're not paying attention to your market, you're going to get left behind because the
Mm.
market is king, period. Period. The market rules all. So you got to pay attention to what's going on. I'm not saying you got to get below the REIT on price, but you can't have a big old gap because you don't even get to play. You won't
Hmm.
get a phone call. If somebody asks you that question, at least you're still in the neighborhood. All right. At least you're close. You can still be top of market by this much. You can't be it by this much.
Hmm.
You're top of market by this, your phone will stop ringing. And whether you do rate increases or not, or whatever the case may be, every customer you got can't wait to give you back that space, and there will be move outs,
Wow. Yep.
and you've got to backfill. So if you have not positioned yourself right in the market, you're going to have a problem. And
Hmm.
here's my story. All right. Do I have time for a story, Tommy?
Go for it,
Oh
baby.
yeah.
We got
Yeah.
time.
Okay. Austin, Texas, west of Austin, Texas, Bee Cave, Texas. Prettiest property in the portfolio. I'm completely biased when I say that because it's mine. Prettiest property in the portfolio. Great location, great management. We're rocking it. All right. We are rocking it. And we are raising rates. And this is after COVID. We're still holding on. Okay. We're still holding on. Guy down the street got a nice property, about the same age, comes in. They got marching orders to build occupancy and they dump the market.
Hmm.
I mean, they're well under half of what we were charging.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you know, I made a mistake. I screwed this one up. I sat there and started to believe in my own propaganda about how great this property was. Was I wrong? I was not wrong. It is a great property. It's a great location. It had the best manager in the business. Bottom line was I ignored the fact that at some point, price will tip the scale.
Mm-hmm.
We were way above the competition. And so then when we started getting move outs, our days on market number started to go up. Units that used to, you could flip them like pancakes, you couldn't flip them anymore. They would sit there and they start to get whiskers on them. And whiskers are expensive. That land lap eats you up.
Yeah.
And so finally, I had to look myself in the mirror and say, hey, pull your head out, buddy. Look what's happening here. And I had some help from some other people that told me the same thing. At some point, Mark, you're just going to have to understand that, the data is the data, regardless of how I felt about the property and the manager and everything else, which hasn't changed. At that point, we decided, okay, let's go. So we suited up. And if you're going to make the decision to play, well, then play hard and play to win. So we went after it. Were we still top of market? We were absolutely top of market. But we were also able to, we can maintain a certain rate, not the one we wanted, but with concessions, made it very competitive, made it really hard for people to say no. It was like, oh, well, you know what? When I look at the concession, it was an aggressive concession. I ran 4 months half off.
Yep.
Most people think they're going to be gone in 4 months anyway. So they're like, yeah, no problem. So I went 4 months half off. And so my rate was still above them. I had a built-in increase. So for complete transparency, everybody that signed up knew right then and there they were going to get their rent doubled in 4 months. And they signed right there and knew that was going to happen. So they couldn't come back and say, you just doubled my rent. No, your concession expired.
Right.
So it's completely transparent from that perspective. And like I said, most of them thought they're going to be gone in 4 months.
Right.
They all think that. They have no idea how long they're going to need the storage. If it was up to them, they'd only need it for a day.
Yeah. Gracie, your comment in the chat, did you have to do a rate increase later on? No, there is no rate increase. This is a limited time concession that the price is $200 at the time of rental, with the known understanding you're paying $100 for the first 4 months. And on X date, it is going to go straight back to the $200. So there is no rate increase. They know it from the very beginning. It is just a sales price in the beginning. That's it.
It's a coupon. And the coupon expires in 4 months.
Yeah.
All right. Yep. Now, Gracie, I want to be clear. If they stay a little bit longer, there's going to be a price increase.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Just to be clear about that. But we suited up and went after it. And we're able to, now we're back in a position where our occupancy back where it needs to be, and we're able to start growing rate again. But you grow it more incrementally. And again, you really have to watch your gap. Because you can get full of yourself and, well, I'm 100% full. I should be higher. I should be higher. It should be higher. But if you've got no vacancies on that part, you have no idea what the price really is.
That's true.
That unit is only worth what somebody's willing to pay. And if you got no vacancy, you don't know what they're willing to pay. So then when you do get vacancy, it's imperative that you look at the days on the market. Okay. You can't let them get whiskers.
Right. I love that.
Right. So to answer the question to the customer that asked that, hopefully the real answer is you need to position yourself to not have to have the question asked. If you're getting that question, you really need to look at where you're at, and you have to look at your market because it rules everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Mark, there's a comment. Ashley said the owners of her facilities need to hear this. Ashley, send them this link.
The recording. There you go.
We're at the 52-minute mark here.
So kind of along the same line, Betty listed a question in the Q&A. How do you handle it when customers who have been with you for a couple of years get upset because they see current rates are now lower than what they're paying?
Solid question.
How do you deal with that kind of a complaint?
It's a hard question, and it's a harder answer
Hmm.
because there's not a good, there's not an answer to that question that's going to make the customer feel okay.
Mm,
There's just not. There's not.
Yeah.
If I'm the consumer and I'm asking the question, and I always try to put myself on that side of the counter, what are you going to tell me that's going to make me feel okay about that?
Yeah.
Well, those are introductory rates, and those are for new customers only, and prices go up and down, and
Hmm.
yeah, I understand you pay $3 for gas today, and you only paid $2 yesterday. Look,
Right.
it is you have to have an honest conversation. You say that, and then look at the customer and where are they at in their life cycle? You know what your average length of stay is? How long are they really going to be there? And then looking at that, you say, okay, let's let's look at the situation. Is there middle ground?
Hmm.
Is there
hmm
middle ground? You still want and look at and if they move out, are they going to move out and move back in? Are you going to make them go through all that, move their stuff down the hallway? Okay, then if that's what you're going to do, did you just take off your service hat? There's still, so you've still got a relationship built here. So what can you do that makes it make sense for them and for the business? All right. The customer doesn't get to run the business.
Hmm.
The day you let the customer run the business is the day you decided to get run out of business. And so
Right.
you have to come to an agreement on this that makes sense for both parties. But it's not an easy answer. It's not an easy conversation, but you have to have it. They're standing in front of you. So explain the situation. Explain, look, this is for new customers only. We're trying to build back occupancy. Let's look at your individual situation. How far off are we here?
Hmm.
Okay, where can we get this to where it maybe makes sense for both of us? And be willing to have that conversation. This is the environment we're operating in.
Yeah.
And so you have to be reasonable. Okay. You've got
Yeah.
a you've got a known commodity in front of you. This is somebody's been paying you on time for 6 months or 8 months or whatever the case may be. The cost to backfill that space, finding a new customer and going through all that stuff, that's expensive.
Yeah.
That's
I like
expensive.
Greg's
So look at
comment.
it that way.
Yeah, Greg has a good piece of advice too. Look for opportunities for a transfer. He's had numerous customers transfer from a 5 by 15 to a 10 by 10 and actually end up saving quite a bit of money, and they get to keep the customer.
That's awesome
So,
advice. Yeah.
yeah, again, be creative and don't be afraid to think outside of the box on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't be afraid
So,
to have the conversation. At least you're
mhm.
getting a chance.
Yeah,
Be grateful they gave you the opportunity to talk about it,
yeah,
as opposed to just saying, yeah,
I'm out. Deuces. Yeah.
yeah.
hmm
yeah.
And so I say, just um, put the cards on the table, have the talk, and
Love that.
let,
Yeah.
let's
Well,
let's make it
and
work.
make sure you're not bending over backwards for a crappy customer too. If they're a
They're
pain
chasing
in
this
your
guy
neck,
down every month.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. If they're a
no,
pain in the neck every single month, they pay late, a couple times. Like, don't waste your time. They need to just have the rent increase or whatever and just roll with it.
Yep. Yep.
So make sure
Yeah.
you're spending time on the right people too.
That's really smart. And Dan Fisher had a comment. Empower your team to make a decision on whether or not to hold off on the rate increase. And I think that's a lot of power with a lot of responsibility.
Mhm.
And I think to Melissa's point, like there are some customers that are worth it. If they're generally very good customers, pay on time, they're great. They don't make, cause a lot of ruckus or noise. Then yeah, maybe we can delay this rate increase for 3 months, and then it is happening in 3 months.
Mhm.
But if the one who, for your customers who might, be a little bit cause they're always late every month, or they're always giving you stuff, or
Yeah.
then yeah, I think you do have to just have a policy this is the policy. And I think Mark, you said it. These are the rates for our new tenants. And I think if you just have an honest, transparent conversation, I think that's the best takeaway here is like, you don't need
Mhm.
to spin this in any sort of way. The customer's not going to feel good no matter what you say. So just have an honest conversation. Like, hey, these are
Mhm.
promotional rates for new customers.
Yep.
That's how it is. There's nothing I can do about that. That is the facts. And sometimes customers just want to complain and then hear facts, and that's it. Like they're not necessarily trying to. I think that's a lot of, and again, it's easier for me to say than for the managers who have to deal with this on the front lines every, on the first of the month or what have you. But some customers just want to say their piece so that they're heard. And that's it. They don't even expect a resolution. They just want to make sure that you know how they feel and then they can move on with their day. And that's
And
okay too.
well, and you have to look at the scope. And I get it. When you're getting the brunt of it face to face, it can feel overwhelming. You have
Yeah.
three people that come in the course of a week, and make the same complaint. Um, I'll get the call. Everybody is complaining. And you really have to say, okay, well, you have 475 customers.
Yeah.
Ooh,
How
love
many,
this.
how many, how many complaints did we get? Well, we got three. Okay.
Okay.
Just to put it into perspective,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I understand how it feels when it happens, just like when, rate increases go out. They always wait to the, the end of the day on the last day of the month to hit send.
Yep.
And then it'll be everybody's complaining. Okay, we sent out 80 increases. How many complaints did you get? Four. Okay, but they were back to back. So it feels like the sky is falling.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we really, you have to take a step back and kind of put it in perspective. Was it really everybody? Well, no. And so um, have empathy for what your team is going through, but also it's up to us to be able to kind of bring them back to reality.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great perspective there. Yeah, it does
Yeah.
sometimes feel like the sky's falling and everything is caving caving in and everything is crackling under pressure.
Yeah.
When you get two, three, sometimes four back to back, miserable phone calls. But yeah, to your point, if you send out 100 such letters and you got two or three people,
That's not everybody.
that's not everybody. So
Yeah.
don't let the loud minority be the voice of reason.
Right. Right.
So great advice, my friend. Well, guess what? It's 3 o'clock. We still have a whole chunk of the agenda that we're not gonna get to. But we'll follow up in a future episode. But to right this minute, though, Mark, I do want to ask you question of the week. And I think it's a really good one. I think I'm excited to hear what you have to say. The question of the week is, what are your three, and I don't know how you can limit it to three, but three best tips for any manager that they can use each day to rent more units and give better customer service? So three tips, Mark, to our fellow managers in the audience.
Follow up. Number one, follow up. You get that nugget, you chase it down. Okay, you're like a dog with a bone, and you get that nugget, you chase it down. Follow up, follow up, follow up. Number one. If you don't, the next guy will. Number two, I would say, is follow through. If you say you're going to do it, damn it, do it.
Mm-hmm.
Do what you say you're going to do.
Yep.
Follow through on what you say. So many times that just doesn't happen. Tommy, you're frozen. Are we all frozen?
I froze a minute ago.
Yeah,
You're
Melissa,
good.
you're good.
Am I good?
Yeah. So you
Zoom
had you
has
had
kicked me out twice.
you had follow up, follow through, and then you were about to give your number three.
Put yourself in the consumer's shoes. Okay. You know how you expect to be treated.
Mm,
You know how you want to be treated. Huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
Huge difference between what you want and what you expect. Know that difference. Okay. Know the difference. Show the difference. Be the difference. Understand that what people expect and what they want are just so different.
mm.
Give them what they want. not what they expect. In today's world, the expectations have been lowered. It's unbelievable. Don't give them what they expect. Give them what they want. Know the difference, show the difference, be the difference.
Woo.
Betty said we
Those are
need
my
to make
three.
that a
I
bumper sticker.
know. Melissa and I are going to pivot. We're going to create a bumper sticker
I'm writing these
business,
down.
a bumper sticker and poster business, and it's just going to be full of Markisms. Um, that's perfect. Yeah, Phil says
Yeah.
in recording, perfect. Deuces, we're out. Yeah, Mark, that's awesome, sir. Um, well, thank you for coming out and supporting Gabfocus and the community, your fellow managers. I mean, really, honestly, I hope y'all send this recording once we publish it to the owners of your facilities. I think lots of great insight, and y'all they can get a feel for what a truly professional management company does and how they teach their staff. So Mark, give us the 30-second rundown. Who is the Jenkins organization? What do y'all do?
Well, we do storage, we do RV resorts. I'm talking about storage. We're owners, operators, and third-party management partners. Say the word partner because that's how we look at it. It's a partnership. It's our owner's brand. It's our owner's business. They're allowing us to partner with them to help them manage. We are positioned in a way because we are owners, we understand what it takes to meet the payrolls. We understand the pressures on owners, individual owners, whether they've got, one place or multiples. We understand the pressure they're under to succeed. So decisions we're able to make as an organization, we are also making for our own personal properties.
Mm.
That gives us a little bit different perspective than some other management companies may have. We do allow our owners to have, frankly, they can be as involved or not involved as they want. We don't lose sight that it's theirs. Okay, that it's their property. So we don't lose sight of that. We really try our best to look at things in very pragmatically when it comes to the relationships with our owners.
Love that. Yeah.
They are our customers.
I love that y'all practice what you preach at not only your customers' facilities, but the ones that y'all own as well. And I think that's what makes the Jenkins organization such a great organization to work with. They're based in Houston. Check them out. Google the Jenkins organization. Their brand of self-storage is called premiumspaces.com. Is it it's 50 facilities under management now, Mark? Does that sound right?
We're floating
Thereabouts?
right at 55 and
55.
expecting a pretty good jump here later this year. So
And
we're growing and we're growing right. We're going the right way, and still being able to give the individual attention to every owner and every property that they deserve.
love it. Yeah. Well, Mark, thanks for coming out. Episode 71 is wrapped. You'll see Melissa and I in May optimizing occupancy right as the busy right whereas we're in the thick of the busy season. We're going to talk about occupancy, how to optimize it, how to make the most of all the leads that you're getting because you're doing all the things right. Hopefully you're doing all the things right. And hopefully you've implemented a lot of these strategies and these customer service options, and you're answering your phone and you're following up and you're following through. You're doing all these things, and if you are, then it will make optimizing occupancy a lot easier.
Right.
So if you are on the road in the next couple weeks, Melissa and I will see you in Las Vegas for the ISS conference. This session and every session before it is available on the Gabfocus official self-storage podcast, wherever you get your podcast. It's available on YouTube and on storagepug.com. And we thank you. We thank everyone here. And enjoy the rest of your weeks. Mark, thank you for coming out. Melissa, thanks for being my lovely co-host as always.
Well, the last 5 minutes have been kind of crazy because Zoom keeps kicking me off and I keep coming back. So
You never look shaken. So, uh,
it's crazy. I heard most of the last 5 minutes. So,
good. Well, I'm glad you looked normal to the audience is all
well,
that matters.
thank you. Thank you so much, Mark. This was a great show.
I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.